Welcome to The Explainer from Notebook Summaries. You've probably seen this picture 1,000 times, right? It's called Guerrero Heroic, and it is one of the most famous photographs in the world. For decades, it's been this global symbol of rebellion. But as you'll see, the story behind the icon is way more complex and, frankly, controversial.
So in this explainer, we're going to journey through the life of Ernesto Che Guevara, from his early days as a doctor in training to his final moments as a captured guerrilla. We're going to explore the man, the revolutionary, and his deeply contested legacy.
To really understand the icon, we have to start with the man, long before the beret and the beard became famous. Okay, so his name was Ernesto Guevara, and he actually grew up in a world of privilege and ideas. His family home was basically a library, with over 3,000 books that really shaped his young mind. And while severe asthma plagued him his entire life, it never stopped him from becoming a pretty formidable athlete. But his real passion was intellectual. He devoured everything from Marx and Freud to the poetry of Neruda.
But it wasn't the books or the rugby that would define him. No, it was two journeys, one on the back of a motorcycle and another straight into a political firestorm that would ignite the revolutionary within him. When he was a young medical student, Guevara and a friend took off on this epic 8,000-kilometer trek across South America. And this wasn't just some road trip. It was a profound, first-hand look at the harsh realities of life for the poor and the exploited all across the continent.
He described a communist couple he met as the shivering flesh and blood victims of capitalist exploitation. And that wasn't just a one-off observation. All over the continent, he saw crushing poverty and just brutal working conditions. For Guevara, these weren't just social problems. They were a call to arms. He became convinced that the only way to bring about real change was through violent revolution.
And then later, in Guatemala, he witnessed a CIA-backed coup overthrow a democratically elected government. This whole thing was done at the behest of the powerful United Fruit Company, and it just cemented Guevara's conviction that the United States would actively destroy any government that tried to fix socioeconomic inequality. This was a major turning point for him. So, with his convictions now rock solid, Guevara's path led him to Mexico City. And it was there he met two Cuban exiles who would not only change his life, but would alter the course of 20th century history.
After meeting Fidel and Raul Castro in Mexico City, Guevara instantly signed on to their cause. He was initially supposed to be the group's medic, but after a disastrous landing in Cuba, where only a handful of the 82 rebels even survived, he picked up a rifle and quickly proved to be a key military mind and leader in their guerrilla campaign.
In the tough crucible of the Sierra Maestra Mountains, Guevara's legend really began to grow. He rose to become Castro's second-in-command, a brilliant military tactician. But his reputation was, well, it was complex. He built schools and clinics for the local peasants, winning their loyalty. But at the same time, he was a harsh disciplinarian, ordering the execution of anyone he considered a traitor to the cause. He was both a builder and an executioner.
His leadership all came to a head at the Battle of Santa Clara. Now get this. Leading a small suicide squad, he faced an army that outnumbered his forces 10-1. Against all odds, he won. It was a stunning military victory that completely broke the back of the Batista regime and sealed the fate of the revolution. So after the victory, the guerrilla fighter had to become a statesman, and his new roles were filled with ambitious reforms and, you guessed it, deep controversy. In the new Cuba, Guevara was given immense power. I mean, look at this list. He oversaw land reform, he ran the National Bank, he served as Minister of Industries. He basically became the czar of the Cuban economy, the chief architect of its new socialist direction, and he tried to rapidly industrialize the nation to break its dependence on sugar.
His first major role was as commander of the La Cabaña prison. And it's here that he oversaw revolutionary tribunals that led to the execution of hundreds of officials from the old Batista regime. This period is, without a doubt, one of the most heavily criticized of his life. His supporters call it necessary revolutionary justice, while his critics denounce the trials as nothing more than summary executions without any due process.
At the very heart of his vision was this radical idea, el hombre nuevo, or the new man. See, for Guevara, a true revolution wasn't just about seizing power. It was about forging a new kind of human being, one driven by moral purpose and the collective good, not the selfish pursuit of wealth. This philosophy directly shaped his economic policies, which frankly often failed because they relied on this new consciousness to just appear, rather than using material incentives to drive production. But the role of a statesman, it just didn't satisfy him. In 1965, Guevara vanished from public life in Cuba to go after his ultimate goal, to spark a worldwide revolution.
His first attempt was in the Congo. He went there to train rebels fighting a Western-backed government, but the mission was a total disaster. He found the local leadership corrupt and the fighters undisciplined. After 7 months, he was forced to flee, completely disheartened by the mission's collapse. And he was brutally honest about the experience, calling it the story of a failure. But he was not deterred. Not at all. He immediately began preparing for his next, and, as it turned out, his final, revolutionary attempt. He chose Bolivia. He really believed he could create a spark that would ignite a fire of revolution across all of South America. But the campaign was plagued from the very start by a lack of support from local peasants, faulty equipment, and relentless opposition from U.S.-trained Bolivian forces who were getting help from the CIA. After just 11 months, Guevara was captured, wounded, and exhausted. The order came down from the Bolivian president: execute him immediately. The next day, on October 9, 1967, he was shot and killed. He was just 39 years old. Guevara's execution didn't end his story. In fact, you could argue it cemented his status as a martyr for some and a tyrant for others, creating a legacy that's just as polarized as the life he lived. To this day, he remains one of history's most revered and reviled figures. For many, he's a heroic symbol of liberation and resistance, praised by people like Nelson Mandela. For others, he was a ruthless executioner who promoted violence and authoritarianism, and whose economic policies were a catastrophic failure. So we're left with this huge, enduring question, right? Was he a revolutionary idealist who gave his life for the oppressed, or a ruthless fanatic who saw violence as the only answer? The man is gone, but the symbol and the controversy live on. If you want to explore more complex figures from history, check out our World Changers and Global Icons playlist, and be sure to subscribe to Notebook Summaries.